At the company's annual gala, the chairman's wife tried to win over her new male assistant by handing me a divorce agreement as my year-end bonus. The entire ballroom fell silent. I signed it without hesitation and walked away. A week later, the company's stock price crashed, leaving her completely stunned. During the lucky draw on stage, Song Wantang smiled as she handed me a red gift box in front of more than 300 employees. "Gu Yanchen," she said after clearing her throat. "This is your special year-end bonus." I opened the box. Instead of a bonus check or a trophy, there was a neatly prepared divorce agreement. The laughter in the room stopped instantly, as if someone had cut it off with a knife. The bright stage lights burned against my face. People in the audience lowered their heads to their phones. Some stared in shock with their mouths open, while others quietly glanced at the young man standing beside Song Wantang, Lu Jingyan. He had joined the company 3 months earlier as the chairman's special assistant. He was 26, clean-cut, charming, and knew exactly what to say. During meetings, he always handed Song Wantang a bottle of water. After working late, he would post on social media about accompanying chairman's song into the night with captions like, "Worth it." Everyone in the company knew he had become her favorite. What they didn't know was that Song Wantang and I had been married for 3 years. Even fewer people knew that the core algorithms behind Xingtang technology had been written by me while I spent more than 400 nights alone in a rented apartment. Standing in front of me in a white evening gown, her earrings sparkling under the lights, Song Wantang spoke in a gentle voice, making sure the microphone caught every word. "Gu Yanchen, let's part on good terms." Someone in the audience gasped. She smiled again. "You've worked hard for the company all these years. I don't want to treat you unfairly. Everything is written clearly in the agreement. Your compensation won't be lacking." Beside her, Lu Jingyan quietly added, "Chairman Song, Director Gu should understand your position." His words felt like the final nail in my coffin. I opened the agreement. The first page read, "Both parties voluntarily agree to divorce." The second page stated, "The husband voluntarily waives all claims to marital property." The third page declared, "All existing intellectual property of Xingtang technology belongs solely to the company and has no personal connection to the husband." The fourth page read, "The husband may not work in any related industry for 2 years after resigning." When I finished reading, I couldn't help but laugh. Song Wantang looked at me. "What are you laughing at?" I closed the agreement and looked her in the eyes. "I'm laughing because you really came prepared." For a brief moment, her expression changed. The audience became even quieter. The host stood nearby with the microphone in his hand, sweating as he wondered whether he should step in. Lowering her voice, Song Wantang said, "Gu Yanchen, don't make a scene. This is the annual gala. Everyone is watching." I looked at her calmly. "Weren't you the one who asked me to come up here?" Her eyes turned cold. "I just wanted to leave both of us with some dignity." I nodded. "Dignity." I took the pen from the host. Someone in the audience whispered, "He's actually signing it. That's brutal." Director Gu has always kept a low profile. I never knew he and Chairman Song. "Shoo! Stop talking. Assistant Lu is standing right there." Song Wantang heard the whispers and frowned. She had always hated losing control. Hurting people never bothered her. What she couldn't stand was other people talking about how she did it. Lu Jingyan stepped half a step closer, his voice as gentle as ever. "Director Gu, Chairman Song hasn't had it easy these past few years. She has to manage the company, deal with investors, and think about your feelings too. This is the best outcome for everyone." I didn't even look at him. Instead, I turned to the last page of the agreement. Before signing, I took out my phone and photographed every single page. Song Wantang's expression darkened. "What are you doing?" "I'm keeping it as a souvenir." Lu Jingyan immediately spoke up. "Director Gu, isn't that a little inappropriate? This is a private document." That was the first time I looked directly at him. "A private document? Then why are you handing it to me at the company's annual gala?" The smile on his face instantly froze. A few people in the audience let out quiet laughs before quickly covering them up. Song Wantang's face turned completely cold. Gu Yanchen, do you really have to embarrass me? I picked up the pen and calmly wrote my name across the signature line. Gu Yanchen. 3 steady characters. No hesitation. When I finished, I placed the pen back on the tray and slid the agreement toward her. It's signed. Song Wantang stood there in silence. She probably never expected me to agree so quickly. For 3 years, she had grown used to me giving in. She said keeping our marriage a secret was necessary for the company's image. I agreed. She said she needed to build authority in front of everyone. I quietly stepped into the shadows. She said the project credits had to belong to the company first so it could secure funding. I signed the authorization papers. She said her mother was in poor health and couldn't handle any emotional shock. For 3 years, I played nothing more than the role of an ordinary colleague. She believed I would always be there, waiting for the day she decided to look back. What she never realized was that once a person's heart is truly dead, actions come much faster than words. I turned around and walked off the stage. Just as I reached the steps, Lu Jingyan suddenly called out, "Director Gu, you haven't collected your year-end bonus yet." I stopped and looked back. With the smile of someone who thought he had already won, he picked up another red envelope from the table. "Chairman Song prepared 200,000 yuan in compensation for you." The room fell silent again. 200,000. That was supposed to buy off 3 years of marriage. Buy off the countless late nights I spent building the company's core system. Please don't forget to subscribe. We're on a mission to reach 1,000 subscribers in just a few days. Your support means the world to me. Thank you so much. Buy off everything I had done to help her go from a startup founder to the chairwoman of a publicly listed company. I walked back, picked up the red envelope, and for a brief moment, Song Wantang looked relieved. She thought I had accepted it. The next second, I slipped the envelope back into the gift box and pushed it toward her. "Keep it for Assistant Lu." The color drained from Lu Jingyan's face. I picked up the microphone and said, "He's been keeping you company late into the night for the past 3 months. That must have been exhausting." The audience exploded. Someone couldn't stop themselves from blurting out, "Holy shit!" Song Wantang immediately grabbed the microphone. "Gu Yanchen." But I had already turned away. Behind me, the stage lights continued flashing. The host stumbled through an awkward attempt to save the situation, while the DJ accidentally hit the wrong button, and a burst of cheerful festival drums echoed through the hall as I walked out of the banquet room. My phone buzzed. A message from Su Jilin appeared. "The video is saved. I received the photos of the agreement. Are you sure you want to start tonight?" Standing at the end of the hotel corridor, I looked out through the glass at the city lights. I replied with a single word. "Start." 5 seconds later, she answered with 2 words. "Got it." I slipped my phone back into my pocket and slowly removed the wedding ring from my left hand. It landed in the trash can with a soft metallic clink. Behind me, the laughter disappeared completely. At that moment, I knew the real year-end bonus for Xingtang Technology had only just begun. I left the hotel without going home. Old Chun, my driver, was already waiting outside. When he saw me walk out alone, he paused for a moment. "Mr. Gu, where's Chairman Song?" I opened the car door and got in. "Don't wait for her." Old Chun looked at me through the rearview mirror but wisely chose not to ask another question. As the car pulled away from the hotel, the banquet hall upstairs was still glowing with lights. My phone kept vibrating. Song Wantang called 3 times. I ignored every call. The 4th call came from her mother, Lin Huiyun. This time I answered. The moment the call connected, Lin Huiyun's furious voice came crashing through the speaker. "Gu Yanchen, what were you thinking tonight? Wantang gave you a way out, and instead you embarrassed her in front of everyone." I kept looking out the window. "Auntie, what she gave me wasn't a way out. It was a divorce agreement." Lin Huiyun let out a cold laugh. "So what if it was? Married couples argue all the time. Signing a paper was just meant to scare you a little. Do you really think you're that important?" I stayed silent. She continued without stopping. "Do you think you'd be where you are today without Wantang? Without her, Would your little technology project have become a listed company? You're just someone who writes code. Who would even know your name? I held the phone and answered calmly. So tonight, you wanted me to know my place. You should have known it a long time ago. Lin Huiyun lowered her voice. Wantang is the chairwoman of a listed company now. She's an important person. So what if she keeps a young assistant by her side? Lu Jingyan knows how to talk, knows how to get things done, and knows how to accompany her to business events. And you're always walking around with that gloomy expression, like the whole world owes you something. I smiled faintly. That's fine. She paused. What's fine? After the divorce, she won't have to look at my gloomy face anymore. Silence filled the line. For the first time, Lin Huiyun seemed to realize something was wrong. Yanchen, don't try to threaten us with divorce. You already signed the agreement. Don't come crying later. I won't. I ended the call. The car became completely quiet. After a while, Old Chun asked softly, Mr. Gu, should I take you back to Cloud Top Apartments? Cloud Top Apartments was the home Song Wantang and I had shared after getting married. The property deed had always been in her name alone. Back then, she said the company had just gone public, and having joint property would attract unnecessary attention. It would be safer if the apartment stayed under her name. I never argued. Back then, I believed marriage wasn't about keeping score. Later, I realized that the people who never keep score are usually the ones who end up losing everything. I said, take me to the old apartment on Guanlon Road. Old Chin looked surprised. Hasn't that place been empty for years? I'm staying there starting tonight. The car made a U-turn. I opened my laptop and connected it to the car's hotspot. The first email went to the company's board secretary. I, Gu Yanchen, hereby resign from my position as chief architect of Shangtang Technology. Effective immediately. In accordance with Article 7 of the Core Algorithm Personal Patent Licensing Agreement signed 3 years ago, if the company encounters major governance risks, damage to my personal reputation, or fails to provide the agreed attribution, I reserve the right to suspend the licensing authorization. The second email went to Su Jilin. Initiate a compliance memorandum. Compile all records of Lu Jingyan's project permissions, client data access, and contract modifications since the day he joined the company. The third email went to Mr. Qin of Galaxy Capital. Mr. Qin, regarding Shangtang Technology's delivery version for next quarter, I need to inform you of an important change. The authorization status of the core algorithm is entering a review period. After sending the 3 emails, I shut down my laptop. Old Chun parked outside my old apartment building. It was a small 70-square-meter unit in an aging residential complex. I rented it after graduating from college. Later, when we were building the company from scratch, Song Wantang lived there with me. Back then, she wasn't Chairman Song. She wore a simple white shirt, sat on the floor eating cold steamed buns, and her eyes sparkled with hope. She smiled and said, Gu Yanchen, when Shangtang succeeds, we'll definitely buy a big house with a river view. I asked her, what should we name the company? She thought for a moment before smiling. Shangtang. Your Sheng, my Tang. I thought the name sounded a little cheesy, but I still nodded. The company was eventually named Shangtang. Only later did she slowly forget that the Sheng had once belonged to me. I carried my suitcase upstairs. Dust covered every corner of the apartment. I flipped the light switch. The old bulb flickered twice before finally coming to life. The living room was almost empty, yet somehow it felt far more comfortable than Cloud Top Apartments. At least no one here was pretending. I had just hung up my coat when the doorbell rang. When I opened the door, Su Jilin was standing outside with a document bag in her hands. She wore a black coat, her hair tied back neatly. I hope I'm not disturbing you. Not at all. She walked inside and looked around. So, you're really moving back here? For now. She placed the document bag on the table. The annual meeting video, the photos of the divorce agreement, and the live stream backup are all here. I also had IT export Lu Jingyan's project access records from the back end over the past 3 months. I opened the bag. The first document on top was a permission log. It showed that Lu Jingyan had accessed the client parameters for Galaxy Capital's second-generation risk control model. He wasn't part of the technical team. He never should have had access. I looked up. Who approved these permissions? Song Wantang. Su Jilin answered without hesitation. I wasn't surprised. She pulled out another document. There's something else. Last week, Lu Jingyan modified the signature on a client's testing report. He removed your name and replaced it with his own. I turned to the last page. The signature read, Lu Jingyan, Special Assistant to the Chairwoman. A faint smile crossed my face. He's bolder than I thought. Su Jilin looked at me. It's not courage. He simply believes someone is protecting him. I closed the file. Then let the person protecting him step forward too. She looked at me seriously. Gu Yanchen, once you suspend the authorization, the company's stock price is going to react. Song Wantang will accuse you of retaliating. I looked up calmly. I'm not breaking any laws. I'm simply enforcing the contract. If she had the nerve to hand me a divorce agreement as my year-end bonus at the annual meeting, then she should also understand that public humiliation counts as a major governance risk. Su Jilin stayed silent for a moment. You're finally done protecting her. I didn't answer. Just then, my phone rang again. This time, it was Song Wantang. I picked up. Her voice was ice-cold. Gu Yanchen, what do those emails mean? They mean exactly what they say. I've resigned. And I've suspended the authorization. Have you lost your mind? No. She tried to keep her anger under control. What happened tonight was an impulsive decision on my part. You don't have to drag work into this. I couldn't help laughing. Chairwoman Song. The moment you handed me a divorce agreement as my year-end bonus in front of the entire company, you were the one who mixed work and marriage together. She fell silent. I could hear her breathing on the other end. Finally, she said, Come back. We'll talk. Talk about what? The agreement can be changed. I can increase the compensation. I lowered my eyes to the permission log lying on the table. Song Wantang. You still think I'm leaving because of the money? Silence answered me. I said, Tomorrow at 9 a.m. in the legal conference room. Not to talk about our relationship. To discuss the handover. Then I hung up. Su Jilin looked at me. She'll bring Lu Jingyan. Perfect. I picked up the client report with the altered signature. Some year-end bonuses needed to be opened face-to-face. The next morning, at 8:50, I arrived at Wantang Technology. A crowd of employees had already gathered outside the building. When a few of them saw me, they immediately lowered their heads and pretended to scroll through their phones. Others looked at me with complicated expressions. A few whispered quietly. Director Gu actually came. After everything that happened last night, is he here to make peace? I heard Chairwoman Song has been furious since this morning. Assistant Lu is here too. I didn't slow down. I swiped my access card. Beep. Access approved. I glanced at the screen. My access level was still active. That meant Song Wantang hadn't revoked my permissions yet. She always relied on emotions to solve problems. What she often forgot was that systems always had a delay. I stepped into the elevator and pressed the button for the 23rd floor. Just before the doors closed, a hand reached in. Lu Jingyan stepped inside. He was wearing a dark gray suit, and his hair was perfectly styled. The moment he saw me, a smug smile appeared on his face. Director Gu, didn't sleep well last night? I ignored him. Standing beside me, he adjusted his cufflinks while looking at himself in the mirrored wall. Chairwoman Song actually has a soft heart. If you just lower your head a little, she won't make things too difficult for you. I kept watching the floor numbers light up. You're so good at speaking for her. Why don't you sign the divorce agreement for her too? The smile on his face faded. Director Gu, a man should know how to accept defeat. I turned to look at him. What exactly did you win? His eyes flickered. I continued calmly. 3 months as an assistant? Or the 200,000 yuan red envelope from the annual gala? His jaw tightened. The elevator dinged as the doors opened outside the conference room. Several senior executives were already seated. Song Wantang sat at the head of the table. She had changed into a black business suit, and her makeup looked even colder than it had the night before. The divorce agreement I had signed was lying on the table in front of her. The moment she saw me, she spoke. Yanchen, withdraw your resignation email. I pulled out a chair and sat down. No. She stared at me. Do you even understand what you're doing? The Star River project is scheduled for final delivery with Mr. Chin next week. Are you trying to destroy the company by resigning now? I answered calmly. I'm simply handing over my work in advance, according to my employment contract. She let out a cold laugh. Employment contract? Yanchen, you're talking to me about an employment contract? I nodded. Yes. Since last night, when you decided I was nothing more than an employee who could receive a divorce agreement as a year-end bonus. Then let's speak as employer and employee. The conference room fell completely silent. Sitting to Song Wantang's right, Lu Jingyan cleared his throat. Director Gu, the company is at a critical stage. Resigning so suddenly is irresponsible. Without saying another word, I opened my laptop and projected my screen onto the meeting room display. The first slide appeared. It was Lu Jingyan's system access log. The moment it came up on the screen, his expression changed. I looked directly at him. Assistant Lu, you're not part of the technical department. So why did you access the client parameters for the Star River second-generation risk control model at 1:27 a.m.? On December 3rd? Everyone in the room turned toward him. He quickly answered, Chairwoman Song asked me to organize the project materials. I clicked to the second slide. On December 5th, you accessed the original testing report again. On December 6th, the report's author was changed from Yanchen to Lu Jingyan. I looked at him. Did Chairwoman Song ask you to do that as well? Song Wantang's expression darkened. Yanchen. This isn't the time to argue over such trivial matters. I met her gaze. Trivial. I opened the third document. It was the project acceptance email from Star River Capital. The email clearly stated, the lead developer of the core algorithm, Yanchen, must participate in all subsequent technical Q&A sessions. I looked back at Song Wantang. The client specifically requested that I attend the technical Q&A. So why was Lu Jingyan listed as the final attendee instead? She said nothing. Lu Jingyan started to panic. Director Gu, don't make normal work arrangements sound so sinister. Chairwoman Song only asked me to attend because you aren't good at socializing. I looked at him calmly. So attending social events required you to delete my name? He was speechless. I continued flipping through the presentation. The fourth slide displayed a board memorandum from 3 years earlier, shortly before the company went public. It contained the licensing agreement under which I authorized Wantang Technology to use the Star River risk control model. The authorization terms were written clearly. The company may use the technology only if Yanchen's authorship rights, technical decision-making authority, and professional reputation remain fully protected. Su Jilin, who had been sitting quietly the whole time, finally spoke. Her voice was calm and steady. According to Article 7 of the agreement, if the company alters authorship without authorization or transfers core technical parameters without permission, the original author has the right to suspend the authorization and request a formal review. Song Wantang immediately turned toward her. Su Jilin, whose side are you on? Su Jilin looked up without the slightest hesitation. I'm on the side of compliance. The room instantly fell into silence. Song Wantang's expression turned grim. What exactly do you want, Yanchen? Song Wantang asked. I looked at her and answered calmly. First, accept my resignation. Second, begin an authorization review for the Star River second-generation project. Third, have the audit department investigate Lu Jingyan's unauthorized access to company data and the alteration of authorship records. Fourth, deal with the divorce settlement separately from company business. Lu Jingyan immediately spoke up. Director Gu, You're using company business as an excuse for personal revenge. I looked straight at him. You really think you're important enough for me to use company business just to get revenge on you? His face instantly turned red. Song Wantang slammed her hand on the table. Enough! She stood up, anger blazing in her eyes. Yanchen, don't forget whose company this is now. The company carries the Song name. Do you really think a few old agreements can threaten me? I calmly closed my laptop. It doesn't matter whose name the company carries. Then I slid a printed notice across the table toward her. Starting at 10 a.m. Today, all permissions related to the Star River project are frozen. Any future updates involving the Star River model will require my written approval. Song Wantang's pupils narrowed. You wouldn't dare. I glanced at my watch. 9:58. 2 minutes left. The room fell completely silent. Someone instinctively looked at the clock displayed in the upper corner of the conference room screen. Lu Jingyan immediately pulled out his phone and started frantically sending messages. I didn't stop him. 9:59. Song Wantang stared at me without blinking. Yanchen. If you stop now, I'll pretend none of this ever happened. I met her gaze. Last night, when I signed the divorce agreement, you could have stopped too. 10 o'clock. The company's internal system suddenly flashed a red notification. Star River Core Model Authorization Status. Under review. Related modules suspended from external delivery. The conference room fell into absolute silence. The next second, Song Wantang's phone rang. She answered it. As she listened, the color slowly drained from her face. It was Mr. Chin. Chairwoman Song. Why weren't we informed that the authorization status of your core technology has changed? She slowly looked at me. Without saying a word, I pushed the resignation handover checklist across the table. Chairwoman Song. Your turn to sign. She didn't touch it. Instead, she pushed it back toward me. Her voice was low. Yanchen. Step outside first. I remained seated. This is the handover meeting. She turned toward the other executives. Everyone else, leave. Several executives immediately stood up. Lu Jingyan also started walking toward the door. I spoke before he could leave. Assistant Lu. Stay. He froze in place. Song Wantang frowned. What else do you want? I looked at Lu Jingyan. Isn't he the acting project leader now? His expression immediately stiffened. At the annual gala the night before, he had stood proudly beside Song Wantang like a prize she wanted everyone to admire. Now he finally realized he hadn't been standing on a winner's podium. He had been standing in the line of fire. The conference room door closed. Only 4 people remained. Me, Song Wantang, Lu Jingyan, Su Jilan. Song Wantang spoke coldly. Yanchen. Did you prepare all of this in advance? Yes. Her eyes flickered. That clearly wasn't the answer she wanted. She wanted me to say last night had been an emotional decision. She wanted me to admit I still cared about her. But I didn't. I reached into my bag and placed a USB drive on the table. I've been preparing ever since Lu Jingyan exceeded his authority and accessed confidential files for the first time. Lu Jingyan shot to his feet. You've been spying on me. I looked at him calmly. The company's back end records every permission log. That's not spying. He clenched his teeth. You deliberately let me access those files. I didn't. I pointed toward Song Wantang. She approved the permissions. Song Wantang's face darkened even further. I plugged the USB drive into my laptop and opened the first recording. It had been recorded 3 weeks earlier outside the CEO's office. Lu Jingyan's voice came through the speakers. Sister Wantang. Does Director Gu dislike me? I always feel like he looks down on me. Then Song Wantang answered. Don't mind him. He's always been like that. He comes from a technical background. He's stubborn. Lu Jingyan laughed softly. But if the Star River project always carries his name, outsiders will think the company can't function without him. You're the one in charge. There was a brief silence. Then Song Wantang replied, the next time you prepare external materials, move his name further down. The recording stopped. Song Wantang's face turned noticeably paler. Lu Jingyan immediately panicked. Director Gu, that recording isn't complete. You're taking it out of context. Without responding, I opened the second recording. This one came from the company break room. It captured a conversation between Lu Jingyan and the marketing manager. Chairwoman Song said that from now on, I'll be the only external contact for the Star River project. The marketing manager asked, "What about Director Gu? He'll leave. Sooner or later." Chairwoman Song has been tired of him for a long time. The marketing manager laughed. "So, what's really going on between you and Chairwoman Song?" Lu Jingyan lowered his voice. "Don't talk nonsense. She hasn't divorced yet." The recording ended. The conference room felt colder than ever. Song Wantang immediately turned toward Lu Jingyan. "You actually said that to other people?" He became flustered. "Sister Wantang, I was only joking." I looked at Song Wantang. "You see, even he knows you weren't divorced yet." Her fingertips trembled. "Last night, she handed me the divorce agreement in front of the entire company and called it preserving dignity. But it had never been about dignity. She wanted everyone to see Lu Jingyan's new position. She wanted to send a message that he could step over me and take my place." Without another word, I opened the third file. The third file was an email Lu Jingyan had sent to an outside consulting firm. Attached to it was a screenshot containing part of the Star River model's parameters. The moment it appeared on the screen, Lu Jingyan's face went completely white. "That wasn't a leak," he said in a panic. "I was only asking for technical advice." Su Jilin picked up the document and glanced through it. Her voice remained calm. "The screenshot contains client testing data as well as internal system parameters. According to the company's confidentiality policy, this qualifies as a major violation." Song Wantang slowly closed her eyes. "Jingyan, why did you do this?" The softness in her voice gave Lu Jingyan hope. He immediately grabbed onto it. "Sister Wantang, I was only trying to help you. I don't understand the technology, so I asked someone who did. I was worried Director Gu was deliberately holding you back." I almost laughed. Even now, he was still hiding behind the excuse of loyalty. Song Wantang hesitated. Just as I expected, she turned to me. "Gu Yanchen, we can handle this internally. There's no need to make such a big issue out of it." I looked at her quietly. "So you're still protecting him?" Her expression stiffened. "I'm not protecting him. I'm protecting the company." "The company?" I pushed another document across the table. "Then what about last night? When you humiliated the person who owns the core authorization in front of the entire company? Was that your way of protecting the company too?" Her lips moved, but no words came out. I slowly stood up. "Song Wantang, you still don't understand. The greatest threat to Shangtang technology isn't my resignation." I pointed directly at Lu Jingyan. "It's the fact that you broke the company's rules, ignored project authority, and even crossed the line in your own marriage. All for someone who doesn't even understand the technology." Unable to hold back any longer, Lu Jingyan shouted, "Gu Yanchen, stop acting like you're above everyone else. You're just jealous. You're afraid Chairwoman Song doesn't need you anymore." I turned and looked at him. Afraid? I opened the final page on my laptop. It was an email from Star Capital that had been sent to me 2 months earlier. The message contained only one sentence. "If Mr. Gu Yanchen leaves Shangtang Technology, Star Capital will reassess all cooperation risks." I turned the screen toward Lu Jingyan. "Why don't you ask President Qin who Star Capital actually needs? You or me?" Lu Jingyan looked as though someone had grabbed him by the throat. For the first time, Song Wantang could no longer remain calm. "Why didn't you tell me about this email?" "I did." She froze. I looked straight at her. 2 months ago, at Cloud Top Apartments, you were talking to Lu Jingyan on the phone. I told you that Star Capital required me to remain the project's technical lead." I paused. Her face slowly lost all color. Then I finished the sentence for her. "You told me, stop using technology to pressure me. I'm the chairwoman. The conference room fell into complete silence. Su Jilin lowered her eyes and said nothing. Song Wantang stared at me as though she had only just realized I wasn't a piece of furniture she could move whenever she pleased. I packed my laptop into my bag. The first authorization review notice has already been sent. Star Capital's representatives will arrive at 2 this afternoon. Song Wantang suddenly stood up. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I picked up my coat. Last night, when you handed me the divorce agreement, you didn't tell me sooner either. I walked toward the door. Behind me, Lu Jingyan called out anxiously. What about me? I turned around and looked at him. Aren't you the project leader now? Then I opened the door. Outside, several employees were pretending to walk past the conference room. I didn't even glance at them. As I walked away, I heard Song Wantang raise her voice at Lu Jingyan for the first time. Hand over every single document you sent outside. I don't want a single one missing. His voice trembled. Sister Wantang. She cut him off with a shout. Now. At exactly 2 o'clock that afternoon, the Star Capital team arrived. President Qin led the delegation himself. He was in his 50s, calm, experienced, and always courteous. But the moment he walked into the conference room, he skipped all the usual greetings. Chairwoman Song. Let's begin with the authorization review materials. Song Wantang forced a professional smile. President Qin, there's been a misunderstanding. Director Gu and I have some personal disagreements. The project itself isn't affected. President Qin glanced toward me. Engineer Gu. Your turn. He called me Engineer Gu, not Director Gu. That title went all the way back to the company's earliest days. Back then, there were only 8 of us. No client trusted a tiny startup like ours. Only President Qin was willing to give us a chance. I spent 3 straight nights working alongside his team, personally running the Star River risk control model until the first acceptance test was completed. When it finally passed, President Qin patted me on the shoulder and smiled. Engineer Gu, your system has real backbone. I took my seat across the conference table and opened the project documents. The project itself is fully deliverable. But there are 3 major risks. First, the authorization status of the core technology is currently under review. Second, the project's authorship records have been tampered with. Third, non-technical personnel improperly accessed confidential client parameters. The moment I finished, President Qin's expression darkened. Song Wantang immediately stepped in. We're already handling the 3rd issue internally. It won't affect the project delivery. President Qin turned to Su Jilin. Attorney Su, what's your compliance opinion? Su Jilin opened the file in front of her. According to the contract, if the supplier's core technical lead changes, the client must be notified at least 15 business days in advance. Wantang Technology never provided that notice. Song Wantang's expression stiffened. Gu Yanchen hasn't officially resigned yet. I spoke calmly. I submitted my resignation last night. At 10 o'clock this morning, the core authorization officially entered its review period. President Qin looked directly at Song Wantang. Chairwoman Song, this isn't a minor issue. Lu Jingyan sat quietly in the corner with his head lowered, barely daring to breathe. But staying quiet wasn't going to save him. One of President Qin's technical advisors opened his laptop. We recently received an external consulting report that included internal parameters from the Star River project. He looked across the table. Can you confirm whether those materials were sent out by your company? As he spoke, he projected the screenshot onto the conference room screen. The color disappeared from Lu Jingyan's face. Song Wantang froze. She had clearly never imagined that the information Lu Jingyan had sent out would eventually make its way back to the client. President Qin's voice became noticeably colder. This consulting report was forwarded to me by one of our business partners. They wanted to know whether Wantang Technology had shared our testing data with a third party for evaluation. The atmosphere in the room instantly became suffocating. Song Wantang whipped around to face Lu Jingyan. Who did you send it to? He stammered. I only sent it to a friend. He said he could help me understand the technical issues. President Qin let out a cold laugh. Your friend is now using our client's confidential data to provide paid consulting services. Lu Jingyan shot to his feet. I didn't know. I really didn't know. Song Wantang's fingers tightened around the edge of the table. She wanted to defend him, but there was nothing left she could say. I opened another document. President Qin. We found this in the back-end system. After last night's annual gala, our legal department preserved all the system logs as evidence. President Qin nodded. Engineer Gu, I trust your findings. That single sentence carried more weight than any stack of evidence I could have presented. Everyone in the room heard it. President Qin trusted me, not Shangtang technology. Song Wantang's face turned pale. She forced herself to remain composed. President Qin will immediately replace the project liaison and strengthen our data security measures. He looked at her. Replace them with whom? Song Wantang slowly turned toward me. There was something in her eyes she didn't even want to admit. A silent plea. I didn't respond. I simply lowered my head and continued organizing my files. In the end, she had no choice but to say it herself. Gu Yanchen will continue leading the project. I looked up. I've already resigned. The conference room fell silent once again. Song Wantang lowered her voice. Gu Yanchen, this isn't the time to throw a tantrum. I looked at her calmly. I'm not throwing a tantrum. You can let Assistant Lu take over. Lu Jingyan immediately lifted his head. President Qin looked at him as well. His gaze was ice-cold. Chairwoman Song, if your company insists on having Mr. Lu lead this project, we'll activate the suspension clause in our contract. The last trace of confidence disappeared from Lu Jingyan's face. Only then did Song Wantang finally realize that the man she had proudly placed beside her at last night's annual gala had become the company's biggest liability today. Before the meeting ended, President Qin left them with one final warning. Shangtang Technology has 48 hours to submit a satisfactory remediation plan. If we don't receive one, the next phase of project payments will be suspended. With that, he stood up and led his team out of the conference room. The door closed behind them. The next second, Song Wantang slammed the files onto the table. Lu Jingyan, what else have you been hiding from me? His eyes were already red. Sister Wantang, I did all of this for you. I wanted to prove that even without Gu Yanchen, you could still manage the project. Song Wantang's breathing became uneven. So you leaked confidential client data? I didn't leak it. Before he could finish speaking, Su Jilan's phone rang. She answered the call. After listening for a few seconds, her expression changed. She hung up and looked at Song Wantang. IT just discovered something else. Lu Jingyan also sent the company's unpublished quarterly performance forecast to an external email address. This time, Song Wantang nearly lost her balance. She grabbed the edge of the table to steady herself. What? Su Jilan handed her the phone. The email wasn't sent to his personal account. It went to the business email of his friend's company. Lu Jingyan stumbled backward. I didn't. This has to be a misunderstanding. I looked at him. Last night, you told me that a man should know how to accept defeat. His face turned bright red. Then Song Wantang slowly looked at me. For the first time, there was no anger left in her eyes, only panic. Yanchen, can you help me stabilize President Qin first? I picked up my bag. Chairwoman Song, I'm no longer an employee of Shangtang Technology. She flinched as though someone had struck her. We're not divorced yet. I looked at her quietly. You handed me the divorce agreement yourself last night. I turned and walked toward the door. Behind me, her voice trembled. Gu Yanchen, do you really have to watch me lose everything? I stopped. No. Then I turned around. I just want you to understand one thing. I'm not a year-end bonus that you can hand out whenever you like and throw away when you're done. That night, Shangtang Technology's internal group chat exploded. The first piece of news was that the Star River project had been suspended for review. Then people learned that Lu Jingyan had been taken in by the Information Security Department for questioning. Not long after that, someone uploaded the annual gala video to an anonymous online forum. In the video, Song Wantang, dressed in a white gown, smiled as she handed me the divorce agreement. Lu Jingyan stood beside her the entire time, wearing a gentle, satisfied smile. When I signed the papers, the entire ballroom fell silent. The title of the post couldn't have been more eye-catching. Female chairwoman of a listed company publicly hands divorce agreement to her secret husband at the annual gala. Male assistant smiles the entire time. The comments exploded within minutes. Some people called it elite family drama. Others said it was workplace humiliation. Then someone uncovered my identity as the original creator of the Star River core model. By 10 o'clock that night, investors had already begun posting questions on Wantang Technologies' investor platform. Has the company's core technical lead, Yanchen, resigned? Is there uncertainty surrounding the authorization for the Star River project? Is the annual gala video authentic? Are there serious governance problems inside the company? Song Wantang called me more than 20 times. I didn't answer a single call. At 11 o'clock that night, she came to my old apartment herself. The doorbell rang over and over. When I opened the door, she was standing outside. Her hair was slightly messy. Her coat wasn't even buttoned. It had been a long time since I had seen Song Wantang like this. Gone was the calm, composed chairwoman. The first thing she asked after stepping inside was, "Did you leak the video?" I looked at her. No. She stared at me. It was obvious she didn't believe me. I stepped aside. "Come in." She walked into the apartment. When her eyes landed on the old sofa in the living room, she stopped. She had been here before. Many times. She remembered this place. It had simply been too long since she'd come back. Standing in the middle of the room, her voice softened. "Yanchen, can we stop all of this?" I set a glass of water on the table. "You think this is a game?" She slowly closed her eyes. "I admit I went too far last night. But at an event like that, Jingyan kept provoking me. I couldn't help laughing." "He provoked you? So you handed me a divorce agreement?" Her voice became even quieter. "He's been under a lot of pressure lately. He feels like everyone talks behind his back because he's always with me. He feels wronged." I looked straight at her. "So you decided I should be the one who feels wronged instead." Her face instantly turned pale. I continued. "Song Wantang, 3 years ago, you said we had to keep our marriage a secret for the sake of the company. I agreed. 2 years ago, you said making our relationship public would make investors think the company was run like a family business. I agreed. 1 year ago, you said project achievements should be announced under the company's name before mine. I agreed." I pointed toward the door. "But yesterday, just so your assistant wouldn't feel slighted, you humiliated me in front of more than 300 people." Her eyes immediately turned red. "I never meant to humiliate you that badly." I looked at her. "Then tell me, how badly did you intend to humiliate me?" She couldn't answer. I turned on the tablet lying on the table. Its screen displayed a directory I had organized. There were 7 folders. Annual gala video, divorce agreement, project authorship changes, Lu Jingyan's permission logs, external email transfer records, client acceptance emails, Song Wantang's approval records. The moment she saw the last folder, her expression changed. "You even kept copies of my approvals?" "The system automatically records every approval." She looked at me. "Why didn't you warn me?" "I did." She bit her lip. "You just didn't listen. You said I was jealous. You said I lacked vision. You said I didn't understand the pressure you were under as the public face of the company." Her eyes became even redder. "I was just exhausted back then." "I know." My voice remained calm. "That's why I carried everything for the past 3 years." She slowly looked up at me. I continued. "When clients requested technical Q&A sessions, I went. when the system triggered emergency alerts in the middle of the night. I handled them. When investors questioned our technical barriers, I prepared every presentation. When your mother looked down on me, I endured it. When you publicly introduced me as nothing more than an old employee of the company, I never exposed the truth. I switched off the tablet. But I didn't endure all of that. So you could treat my patience as permission to betray me. Tears finally rolled down Song Wantang's face. Yanchen, Jingyan and I, we never crossed that line. I let out a quiet laugh. She hurriedly continued. Really? We didn't. I admit. I liked the way he admired me. I admit. I let him get close to me. That was my mistake, she said quietly. But I never truly betrayed our marriage. I looked at her. So, in your mind, betrayal only counts if two people end up in the same bed? She froze. Without another word, I walked over to a drawer and took out a photograph. It had been taken in the underground parking garage of a hotel. In the picture, Lu Jingyan had one arm around her waist while she leaned against his shoulder. That night, she had told me she was entertaining a client. The moment she saw the photo, all the color drained from her face. You had someone follow me? Old Chun took it, I replied. He drove you to the hotel that night. He waited until dawn. You never came back to the car. Lu Jingyan took you to his apartment. She hurried to explain. I drank too much. I don't remember anything. I didn't ask what had happened afterward. Instead, I quietly placed the photo back on the table. It doesn't matter anymore. Her tears fell even harder. How can it not matter? We've been married for 3 years. You can't just throw everything away. I looked at her calmly. The one who decided to throw it away was you. Last night, she suddenly reached out and grabbed my hand. Yanchen, help me this one last time. Before the market opens tomorrow, release a statement saying you haven't resigned. Tell everyone the authorization is fine. Let's stabilize the stock price first. After that, I'll do whatever you ask. I lowered my eyes to the hand holding mine. Those same hands had once massaged my aching shoulders in our tiny rented apartment. Those same hands had also handed me a divorce agreement in front of the entire company. Slowly, I pulled my hand away. I can release a statement. A glimmer of hope appeared in her eyes. Then I continued. But every word in it has to be true. Her expression froze. I picked up my phone and opened the draft statement I had already sent to Su Jailan. It was brief. Gu Yanchen confirms that he has submitted his resignation due to internal issues, including authorship tampering, violations of the authorization agreement, and serious compliance risks. The authorization for the core algorithm has officially entered the review process. I will protect my legal rights in accordance with the law while cooperating with clients to complete all necessary security handovers. When Song Wantang finished reading it, she staggered backward. You're trying to destroy Shangtang technology. I shook my head. I'm not the one destroying it. Then I looked straight at her. You were the one who pushed it onto the center of the stage last night. She didn't say another word. Just after midnight, I released the statement. 10 minutes later, Shangtang technology was trending online. 30 minutes later, every major investment forum was discussing it. Before dawn, Su Jailan sent me a message. The stock exchange has issued an inquiry letter. I replied with one word. Good. I put down my phone. Song Wantang was still standing by the door. Her face was pale. At last, she understood. I wasn't throwing a tantrum. I was reclaiming my voice. The next morning, when the stock market opened, Shangtang technology immediately fell 8%. 10 minutes later, the loss widened to 12%. Financial news outlets began covering the story nonstop. Shangtang Technology's core algorithm authorization under review. Star River project faces potential delays. Secret marriage scandal raises questions about corporate governance. Chairwoman's special assistant suspected of violating authorization rules. Shangtang Technology responds. Internal investigation underway. Finally, Song Wantang made her move. At 10 o'clock that morning, the company released an official statement. It claimed that Yanchen was merely an ordinary technical manager whose departure would not affect the company's operations. It also stated that the core algorithm belonged entirely to the company and faced no personal authorization risks. The final sentence was the harshest. The company reserves the right to pursue legal action against anyone spreading false information based on personal emotions. After reading the statement, I smiled. A moment later, Su Jailan called. She released that statement without going through legal. I wasn't surprised. I figured she had support from some of the board members. Director Zhao insisted they had to stabilize the stock price first. He doesn't want you making the situation any worse. I gave a faint smile. Director Zhao is backing her because he signed the company's performance commitments. He cashed out last year. Now he's terrified everything will collapse. There was a brief silence. You knew about that too? I conducted his risk assessment. I opened my laptop. 3 lawyers' letters were already sitting in my drafts folder. The first was addressed to Wantang Technology, demanding that the company correct its false public statement. The second was addressed to the stock exchange, providing additional disclosure regarding the authorization agreement. The third was addressed to Star River Capital, formally confirming the scope and boundaries of the authorization review. I didn't send any of them yet. I knew Song Wantang wasn't finished fighting back. Sure enough, about 30 minutes later, Lu Jingyan posted on his social media. The photo showed him working late alone in his office. The caption was written to make himself look like the victim. Some people only know how to rely on past achievements and criticize others, while never noticing the people who are actually working day and night for the company. Those who are innocent don't need to defend themselves. The post was quickly screenshotted and shared across different group chats. Before long, similar posts began flooding the internet. Was Yanchen just a kept husband all these years, and now he's throwing a tantrum after the divorce? Does a tech employee threatening a listed company after resigning count as workplace harassment? Song Wantang has been carrying the company on her own, only to be betrayed by her secret husband. What a tragedy. I scrolled through every post without getting angry. Song Wantang understood how public opinion worked. She knew that when a marriage falls apart, it's easy to paint the man as petty, vindictive, or controlling. She wanted to turn me from the one who had been humiliated into the one blamed for destabilizing the company. At 1 o'clock that afternoon, my mother-in-law, Lin Huiyun, called. Yanchen, take down that statement immediately. I can't. Don't push Wantang any further. She's had such a hard time all these years. You're a man. Why are you being so petty? I leaned back in my chair. So when she hands me divorce papers in front of everyone, she's being strong. But when I protect my legal rights, I'm the petty one. Lin Huiyun snapped. Don't twist my words. You're just jealous because Wantang has Jingyan by her side now. A real man should have some dignity. I laughed. You like dignity? Then I'll show you what real dignity looks like. She didn't understand what I meant. She hung up. Immediately afterward, I sent out the first lawyer's letter. At the same time, Su Jailan officially submitted the original scanned copy of the core technology licensing agreement, signed 3 years earlier, through the regulatory inquiry system. By 2 o'clock that afternoon, the stock exchange required Wantang Technology to issue additional explanations regarding its public announcement. The direction of public opinion immediately began to change. Someone posted screenshots of the key pages of the licensing agreement. Yanchen isn't just an ordinary employee. He's the person who licensed the company's core technology. The company claims the algorithm belongs entirely to Wantang Technology. Isn't that misleading investors? At the annual gala, they even tried to make him sign away his intellectual property rights. They were basically trying to swallow his life's work. And Lu Jingyan has only worked there for 3 months. How can he claim he's the one carrying the company? Soon after, Song Wantang called again. This time, she could barely control her anger. Yanchen, are you trying to force the company into a trading suspension? I answered calmly. I'm only asking you to correct a false public announcement. She gritted her teeth. I released that announcement to stabilize the market. With false information. She fell silent for a second. You never used to treat me like this. I looked out the window. And you never used to hand me divorce papers like they were a prize. I heard her breathing stop for a moment. Then I continued. Song Wantang. Stop hiding behind the past. The past was something I gave you. It was never meant to become an excuse for breaking your promises. She stayed silent for a long time. Finally, she spoke in a quiet voice. What do you want? What will it take for this to end? I watched the company's stock price moving in real time. Wantang Technology had already dropped 18%. My conditions are simple. Publicly apologize. Correct the false announcement. Suspend Lu Jingyan from his position. Launch an independent audit. And publicly acknowledge the risks surrounding the Xinhua model's licensing. She rejected every condition almost immediately. Impossible. I answered with equal calm. Then this continues. The call ended. By 3 o'clock, when the market closed, Wantang Technology had fallen 19.6%, stopping just short of triggering a trading halt. That evening, the company held an emergency board meeting. I wasn't entitled to attend anymore. Su Jilin was. Partway through the meeting, she sent me a message. Song Wantang is blaming everything on you. Director Zhao proposed filing a lawsuit to force you to restore the authorization. I replied with only 3 words. Let them try. 10 minutes later, another message arrived. Lu Jingyan cried during the board meeting. He said he only wanted to help Song Wantang prove herself. I smiled after reading it. People who cry often receive more sympathy than the people who quietly do the work. But tears don't repair permission logs. And they certainly don't recover a collapsing stock price. At 9 o'clock that night, the board meeting finally ended. A voice message from Song Wantang arrived. I pressed play. Her voice sounded exhausted and hoarse. Gu Yanchen, you won the first round. But don't forget, you still own shares in the company. If you're determined to burn everything down, you'll lose too. After listening, I simply forwarded the recording to my lawyer. Then I walked over to the safe and opened it. Inside was an old equity proxy agreement. Back then, to make fundraising easier, I had entrusted part of my shares to Song Wantang to hold on my behalf. She believed those shares were still her strongest bargaining chip against me. What she didn't know was that the agreement also contained one critical clause. If the marriage is dissolved and the proxy holder is found to be primarily at fault, the original shareholder has the right to demand the immediate return of all entrusted shares, together with any corresponding proceeds. I took the agreement out of the safe, photographed every page, and sent the files to Su Jilin. Then I sent her one short message. Tomorrow, round 2. On the 3rd morning, Song Wantang held a press conference. She was dressed in a dark blue business suit, her makeup flawless, her expression calm as she faced the cameras. The recent discussions surrounding my personal marriage and the company's governance have occupied too much public attention, she said. For that, I sincerely apologize. She apologized first. Then she quickly shifted the conversation. Mr. Gu Yanchen was once an important member of Wantang Technology, and we respect his contributions. However, the company has reached its current success because of the entire team, not any single individual. I watched the live stream from my office. The moment she said those words, the camera switched to Lu Jingyan. He was sitting off to the side with slightly reddened eyes, looking as though he had suffered some great injustice. A reporter asked, "Did Mr. Lu improperly access confidential project materials?" Song Wantang answered, "The matter is still under investigation, but as far as I know, Mr. Lu's intentions were always to help move the project forward." The moment I heard that answer, I knew there was no turning back. Even now, she was still protecting him. Another reporter asked, "Does Mr. Gu Yanchen personally hold the authorization rights to the company's core algorithm?" Song Wantang hesitated for a brief second. "The company will handle that matter according to the law." She didn't deny it. The stock exchange's inquiry had already forced her hand. She couldn't openly lie anymore. but she was still trying to blur the truth. I turned off the live stream and called my lawyer. Send it. At 10 o'clock that morning, the lawyer's letter was released publicly. It wasn't long, but every sentence hit hard. First, it demanded that Song Wantang immediately return the shares she was holding on my behalf. Second, it demanded that Wantang Technology publicly correct its false statements regarding Yanchen's contributions to the company. Third, it demanded that Lu Jingyan immediately stop using any project materials, achievements, or credit related to the Star River project. Fourth, it reserved the right to pursue legal action against both Song Wantang and Lu Jingyan for infringing upon my authorship rights, damaging my reputation, and failing to properly safeguard trade secrets. Attached to the letter were two critical documents. The first was the equity proxy agreement. The second was a written confirmation signed by Song Wantang 3 years earlier. The document clearly stated that Yanchen was a co-founder of Wantang Technology and held the corresponding economic rights, while Song Wantang was merely holding part of those shares on his behalf. The internet exploded again. So he wasn't just an ordinary technical manager? He's actually one of the company's co-founders. Did Song Wantang lie in the company's public announcement? She handed him divorce papers at the annual gala while trying to take away both his intellectual property and his shares? That's unbelievably ruthless. And why was Lu Jingyan sitting at the press conference at all? That afternoon, Wantang Technology stock continued falling. Before the market closed, it hit the daily limit down. Only then did Song Wantang finally realize how serious the situation had become. When she came to see me this time, Lu Jingyan wasn't with her. We met in a private club. By the time I arrived, she had already been waiting for half an hour. 2 cups of coffee sat on the table. She gently pushed one toward me. You used to like this. I didn't even touch it. Her fingers tightened slightly. Yanchen, let's make a deal. I sat down. I'm listening. I can return part of your shares. I can restore your authorization. I'll suspend Lu Jingyan. We'll tell the public this was only a marital dispute. An internal misunderstanding. I looked at her. Return part of my shares? She pressed her lips together. The company can't fall apart just because we're getting divorced. You're a shareholder too. You should understand. I nodded. I do. Hope appeared in her eyes. Then I continued. That's exactly why I can't allow someone who humiliates her husband at the annual gala and lets an assistant touch confidential client data to continue controlling the company's core projects. Her face instantly turned pale. You want me to step down as chairwoman? I answered without hesitation. Yes. She shot to her feet. Yanchen. So this is what you've wanted all along. You've been trying to take power. I calmly looked up at her. Song Wantang. You're still pretending not to understand. Her eyes slowly turned red. How could I not understand? You've pressured the company, the board, the media, step by step, just to force me out. Without arguing, I placed another document on the table. This is the crisis management plan for the Star River project. She lowered her eyes and began reading. The proposal was straightforward. I wasn't asking to become chairperson. I wasn't asking to join management. The only things I requested were, the company should establish an independent technology compliance committee. The chairperson should no longer have sole authority over core project approvals. All access to confidential client data should require dual approval and signatures. As she continued reading, her expression gradually changed. Finally, she looked back at me. You don't want the chairperson's position? No. Then why? I met her eyes. Because I don't want you using other people's hard work as favors to hand out. She couldn't find a single word to answer. I continued. You can remain chairwoman. But you can no longer decide by yourself. Who gets access to projects? Who receives the credit? And who gets sacrificed? She stared at me for a long time. Then she suddenly laughed. It was a bitter, exhausted laugh. So, you still want to teach me how to run the company? I slowly stood up. I'm not trying to teach you. I'm trying to correct the mistake, I said. Back then, I gave you too much power because I thought it was trust. Later, I realized that trust without boundaries only creates entitlement. Tears rolled down her face. What about us? I picked up my coat. We're over. She hurried after me. I can change. I stopped at the door. 3 years ago, you told me keeping our marriage secret was only temporary, and I believed you. 2 years ago, you said it wasn't the right time to make it public, and I believed you. 1 year ago, you told me Lu Jingyan was just an assistant, and I tried to believe that too. I turned back to look at her. Song Wantang, it wasn't that I didn't give you enough time. You simply used every moment I gave you to prove that I never mattered. Her face turned completely pale. I turned around and walked away. As soon as I stepped out of the club, my phone rang. It was Su Jilin. The board just received an anonymous report. Lu Jingyan's external email wasn't only used to send performance forecasts. It also received a payment of 200,000 yuan labeled as a consulting fee. I stopped walking. Where did the money come from? His friend's company transferred it. The payment memo says, Project Consultant Fee. I stood there, staring at the traffic moving through the street. 200,000 yuan. The exact same amount Song Wantang had offered me as compensation at the annual gala. I couldn't help smiling. How ironic. Then I said, preserve all the evidence. Su Jilin asked, should I hand it over immediately? I glanced back toward the club. Through the glass walls, Song Wantang was still standing there, watching me. I looked away. Hand it over. On the 5th day, Shangtang Technology stock was officially suspended pending investigation. When the announcement was released, the company's internal group chat went completely silent. Only a few days earlier, everyone had been gossiping that I was taking revenge. Now nobody dared say a word. The suspension notice listed 3 reasons: the review of the company's core technology authorization, the risk of customer data leaks, and the chairwoman's special assistant receiving outside consulting fees. Lu Jingyan was immediately suspended while the investigation continued. The board also ordered Song Wantang to step back temporarily from all decisions related to the Star River project. I saw the announcement while I was in a video meeting with President Qin. He took a sip of tea and sighed. Mr. Gu, to be honest, I never imagined Shengtong's internal problems were this serious. I'm sorry the project was affected. He shook his head. You don't owe anyone an apology. What we're putting on hold isn't you. It's the company's management risks. And now those risks are impossible to ignore. After the meeting ended, an unfamiliar number called me. I answered. It was Lu Jingyan. His voice sounded rough and exhausted. Gu Yanchen. We need to meet. No. Are you really trying to push me into a corner? I leaned back in my chair. You illegally accessed confidential files. You altered project authorship. You accepted consulting fees. Which one of those did I force you to do? He panicked. Song Wantang told me to do all of it. My expression turned cold. Do you have proof? He fell silent. If you don't have evidence, don't start accusing other people. Suddenly, he laughed. Don't you want to see Song Wantang regret everything? I can help you. I know a lot. Like what? Like she planned to remove you from the core team a long time ago. Like she and her mother discussed how to keep you from getting any shares after the divorce. Like the divorce agreement at the annual gala. Her mother even had a lawyer revise it. I listened without interrupting him. His voice became more desperate. Just let me go. I'll give you every chat log. I answered calmly. Send everything to my lawyer. He froze. You won't even meet me? No. Gu Yanchen. Aren't you afraid I'll burn everything down? I replied. Right now. You're not even the fish. Then I hung up. 10 minutes later, my lawyer received every chat record Lu Jingyan had promised. I opened the first screenshot. Lin Huiyun. At the annual gala, you need to put him in his place in front of everyone. Men care about their pride. If he signs the agreement on the spot, he won't be able to back out. Song Wantang. Wouldn't that be too cruel? Lin Huiyun. He depends on you to survive. What's he going to do? Make a scene? Besides, Jingyan is watching. You have to give him some kind of signal. I opened the next conversation. Song Wantang. After tonight, you won't have to feel insecure anymore. Lu Jingyan. Sister Wantang. I'm not trying to pressure you. I'm just afraid I'll never have a chance to stand in the light. I stared at those messages for a long time. I expected to feel anger or heartbreak. Instead, all I felt was a strange emptiness. My marriage had become nothing more than a game they played to comfort someone else. And my dignity had been turned into a gift for Lu Jingyan. I forwarded the screenshots to my lawyer as additional evidence. That afternoon, the board held its second emergency meeting. This time, they invited me to attend. I walked into the same conference room, but the atmosphere was completely different. Song Wantang was no longer sitting at the head of the table. Chairman Zhao was. She sat off to the right, looking exhausted and worn out. Lu Jingyan wasn't there. As soon as the meeting began, Chairman Zhao spoke. Mr. Gu, the company is facing a very serious crisis. We hope you'll look at the bigger picture and restore the authorization for the Star River model. I stood in the server room. While she was out drinking with investors and negotiating deals, I was the one making sure the system stayed online. I was writing code, fixing bugs, optimizing algorithms, running stress tests. Every time the servers crashed in the middle of the night, I was the one who stayed until morning. Without those systems, there would have been nothing for her to sell. Lin Huiyun let out a cold laugh. Technology is just technology. If nobody invests in it, it's worthless. I looked at her calmly. And without technology, what exactly were you asking investors to invest in? She couldn't answer. The room fell silent. Song Wantang looked back and forth between us, tears streaming down her face. She slowly sat down on the sofa as if all her strength had drained away. So, it was never about protecting the company's image. She looked at her mother. You've been planning this since the very beginning. Lin Huiyun didn't deny it. She simply sighed. I was planning for your future. I've seen too many women lose everything because of men. I wasn't going to let that happen to you. Song Wantang shook her head. But Yanchen isn't like that. Lin Huiyun replied firmly. It doesn't matter. Every man changes once he has enough power. I couldn't help but smile. So that was your answer. You never distrusted me because of anything I'd done. You distrusted me because I was a man. Neither of them spoke. I picked up the documents from the table. The 5 million. The law firm's strategy. The share arrangements. They'll all be handed over to my lawyer. Lin Huiyun's expression changed. Gu Yanchen, do you really have to go this far? I looked at her. When you spent 3 years planning against me, did you ever think you'd gone too far? She had no answer. I turned toward Song Wantang. She was still sitting there, staring blankly at the documents in her hands. Her voice was barely above a whisper. Yanchen, I'm sorry. I shook my head. Don't apologize to me. Apologize to the version of yourself from 3 years ago. The woman who sat with me on the floor of that tiny apartment. The woman who ate cold steamed buns with me. The woman who believed we would build this company together. She's the one you let down the most. She broke down completely. Covering her face with both hands, she sobbed uncontrollably. I really didn't know. I never knew Mom had done all this. I looked at her quietly. Maybe you didn't. But every choice after that was still yours. You chose to hide our marriage. You chose to erase my name. You chose to give Lu Jingyan access to confidential projects. And you chose to hand me divorce papers in front of the entire company. I can't make those choices disappear just because you regret them now. She couldn't say another word. I walked toward the door. Behind me, Lin Huiyun suddenly spoke again. Gu Yanchen, if you walk out today, there will never be another chance. I didn't even turn around. There stopped being another chance. The moment you all decided my dignity was something you could negotiate, I opened the door. As I stepped outside, my phone vibrated. It was a message from Su Jailan. The audit team has finished reviewing the financial records. They found more issues. I looked down at the screen. What did they find? She replied almost immediately. The 5 million wasn't the only transfer. There are several more related transactions, and every one of them leads back to the period before the company went public. I put my phone away. The deeper we dug, the more obvious it became. This had never been just about a marriage. It had started as a carefully planned effort to protect Song Wantang's image. Over time, it became a way to strip me of my rights. And eventually, it grew into something that threatened the entire company. I remember those days clearly. When the servers crashed, I was the one in the server room. When the client's models wouldn't run, I was in the server room. When investors needed technical verification, I was in the server room. I never denied that Song Wantang was the public face of the company. But that never gave anyone the right to erase everything I had done behind the scenes. I put the bank transfer records back into my bag. Here's what I want, I said. I want my shares returned. I want the profits that belong to me. I want every unfair clause in the divorce agreement revoked. And I'm also pursuing the fake consulting fees paid through your company. Lin Huiyun shot to her feet. How dare you? Song Wantang quickly grabbed her arm. Mom, stop. Lin Huiyun shook her off. You're still defending him? He's trying to destroy the Song family. Song Wantang finally broke. She shouted through her tears. No, we destroyed him first. The entire living room fell silent. It was the first time I had ever heard Song Wantang admit the truth. But by then, it didn't change anything. I turned and walked toward the door. She hurried after me. Yanchen. I stopped without turning around. Her voice was barely above a whisper. If I had made our marriage public back then, would things have turned out differently? I answered without hesitation. No. She stood there, frozen. I rested my hand on the doorknob and said, because the real problem was never whether our marriage was public. The problem was that every time you knew what the right choice was, you still chose what benefited you the most. Then I walked out of the Song family home. The night air was cold. Behind the closed door, I could hear Song Wantang quietly sobbing. I never looked back. On the 7th day, Shangtang Technology resumed trading. The stock immediately hit the daily limit down. This time, no one accused me of taking revenge because the company had already disclosed every major risk in its supplemental filing the night before. Lu Jingyan was officially fired and handed over to the authorities for investigation. Lin Huiyun's company came under a tax investigation. Song Wantang stepped down as the head of the Star River project. She remained chairwoman, but the board stripped her of the authority to approve core projects on her own. As for me, I officially filed for divorce and submitted my application to the court to recover my equity. After she received the documents, Song Wantang sent me a message. Can we meet one last time? I didn't want to go, but my lawyer reminded me that several documents had to be delivered and acknowledged in person. We agreed to meet at a cafe next to the Civil Affairs Bureau. Outside the window, one line of couples waited to get married while another waited to get divorced. The contrast was almost ironic. Song Wantang looked much thinner than she had only a week earlier. She wasn't wearing makeup, and the dark circles beneath her eyes were impossible to hide. When she saw me, she stood up. You came. I sat down, placed the documents on the table, and slid them toward her. Please sign to confirm you've received them. She looked at the papers, and her eyes turned red again. Is this really all you have left to say to me? I answered calmly. At this point, all that's left between us are the things that still need to be handled. She lowered her head and gave a faint, bitter smile. Last night, I went back. I looked at her. To the old apartment on Guanlan Road, she said. I stood downstairs for a long time. I didn't reply. She continued softly. I remembered when we first started the company. You'd stay up coding until sunrise, and I'd fall asleep beside you. Back then we had nothing. But somehow I felt more secure than I ever have since. I listened without moving. She looked into my eyes. Yanchen, I never meant to hurt you. I know. For a brief moment, hope returned to her face. Then I finished my sentence. But the outcome is still the same. The hope disappeared instantly. I've already stepped down from the Star River project, she said. I've apologized publicly. I won't see Lu Jingyan again. I'll handle the equity according to the law. Her voice shook. Can we not get divorced? I looked out the window. A young man handed a bouquet of flowers to a smiling young woman. Years ago, Song Wantang and I had registered our marriage on a morning just like this. She hadn't worn a wedding dress, just a simple white shirt. She held my hand tightly and smiled. Gu Yanchen, she had said. We won't make our marriage public for now, but in my heart you're already my husband. Back then I believed every word. The hardest part of being deceived isn't the lie itself. It's realizing you once believed it completely. I looked back at her. No. Tears rolled down her face. Why? She whispered. You still remember everything. Remembering the past doesn't mean going back. She covered her mouth as her shoulders trembled. I took out one last document and placed it on the table. And this? She looked down. It was the official notice terminating the authorization, along with a new letter of intent. Wantang Technology's exclusive license for the Star River second-generation model would be terminated. However, to ensure the safety and continuity of existing client systems, I would provide a 6-month transition period before the authorization officially ended. I had already made my decision. After 6 months, the license would no longer be exclusive. It would be open under the supervision of an independent technology compliance committee. Song Wantong's face turned pale. So you're cutting us off completely? Yes. Then Xingtong won't be the only company using it anymore. That's right. She stared at me in disbelief. Are you starting a new company? Yes. She looked like she'd just been hit. With who? With myself. I met her eyes. Song Wantong. I'm never putting my future in someone else's hands again. She lowered her voice. I can invest. No need. I can help you. No need. She finally broke down. Gu Yanchen, do you really hate me that much? I was quiet for a few moments. I don't hate you. She froze. Hating someone means you still expect something from them. I don't anymore. Those words hurt her more than any insult ever could. She looked completely empty. I stood up. Please sign. Her hands trembled as she picked up the pen. Tears fell onto the paper, blurring the ink as she signed her name. When she finished, she looked up at me. What about the ring? I threw it away. Her face turned white. When? The night of the annual party. She closed her eyes. After a long silence, she whispered, I thought you'd keep it. I looked at her calmly. When you handed me divorce papers as my year-end bonus, you should have known I wasn't going to keep wearing humiliation on my finger. She had nothing left to say. I picked up the documents and turned to leave. Just as I reached the door, Lu Jingyan rushed into the cafe. His hair was a mess, and his eyes were bloodshot. The moment he saw Song Wantang, he lunged toward her. Wantang, save me. They're going to sue me. I can't go to prison. She stumbled backward in shock. Lu Jingyan grabbed her arm tightly. You promised you'd protect me. Those permissions were all approved by you. Changing the report signatures was your decision. Now you can't just throw me under the bus. Everyone in the cafe turned to look. Song Wantong's face went pale. Lu Jingyan let go. He shouted back, No, you're sacrificing me for Gu Yanchen. Didn't you say he'd be gone soon? The entire cafe fell silent. Song Wantang looked as though she'd been stripped of every last bit of dignity in front of everyone. I didn't step in. This time I didn't have to. The person she had chosen for herself was the one dragging her into the mud. Lu Jingyan kept yelling. You people from the Song family are all the same. You use people, then throw them away. Your mother told you to push me into making you divorce him. You told me that after the annual party, I'd finally be able to stay by your side openly. Song Wantong's face turned completely gray. She raised her hand and slapped him across the face. Get out. Lu Jingyan covered his cheek, then laughed bitterly. Now you're pretending to be innocent, Song Wantang? You're even dirtier than I am. Security rushed over and dragged him outside. The cafe buzzed with whispers. Song Wantang stood there trembling. She looked at me. Her eyes silently begged me to do what I had done so many times over the past 3 years. Step in and clean up another mess for her. I looked at her once. Then I opened the door and walked out. Just before it closed behind me, I heard her cry out my name. Yanchen. I didn't stop. For the first time, she experienced what it felt like to be humiliated in public. And this time, I wasn't there to hold an umbrella over her. 3 months later, our divorce officially became final. Song Wantang returned every share she had been holding on my behalf, along with all the profits that belonged to me. The fake consulting fees paid through Lin Huiyun's company came under formal investigation. Lu Jingyan was arrested for illegally obtaining and leaking confidential business information. Shangtang Technology survived, but it never recovered to its former peak. The board was reorganized. Song Wantang stepped down as chairwoman and remained only as a non-executive director. This time, she didn't leave the front lines to protect someone else. She stepped back because there was no one left to stand in front of her and shield her from the storm. I founded a new company. Its name was simple, Yanchen Tech. There was nothing in its name that belonged to her. No trace of anyone else. President Qin became our first client. On the day we signed the contract, he looked at the blank wall outside my office and smiled. You're not hanging anything up? Like what? I asked. Trophies? Awards? Founder photos? I smiled and shook my head. There's no rush. President Qin laughed. You're still the same. I looked at him and smiled. No, not anymore. He gave me a curious look. I signed the contract, slid it across the table and said, I used to believe that if you worked hard enough, people would naturally recognize your value. I capped the pen and smiled. Now I understand something. When it's time to put your name on your work, you write it clearly. President Qin nodded in agreement. Exactly. On the day my new company officially opened, Su Jilan sent over a potted plant. She had already left Shangtang Technology and joined an independent compliance firm. She placed the plant by the window. Congratulations, she said. Thank you. She looked around at the young employees busily working in the office. Song Wantang came to see me yesterday. I paused. What did she want? She asked where your new company is. I didn't say anything. I didn't tell her, Su Jilan added. I nodded. Thanks. She looked at me for a moment. She regrets everything. I smiled faintly. Her regret is her own business. Su Jilan didn't say another word. That afternoon, a package arrived with no return address. When I opened it, there was a ring inside. I recognized it immediately. It was the wedding ring I had thrown away on the night of the annual party. Beneath it was a handwritten note from Song Wantang. I looked for it beside the trash can for a long time. Yanchen. I'm sorry. I stared at the note for a long while. Not because I couldn't let go. Because it all felt so absurd. She had finally bent down to pick up something I had thrown away. But what she picked up wasn't our marriage. It was only an old object that no longer meant anything to me. I placed the ring back into an envelope and handed it to my assistant. Send it back. The assistant asked, should I include a note? No. No explanation. No blame. No reply. That silence said more than any letter ever could. A week later, Shangtang Technology held a new shareholders meeting. I attended as a shareholder. The venue was the same hotel. 3 months earlier, I had signed the divorce agreement there. Now, 3 months later, I sat in the front row while the company elected a new board. Song Wantang was there too. She wore a black suit, and her hair had been cut short. When she saw me, she stood up as if she wanted to walk over. I lowered my eyes to the documents in front of me and gave her no opportunity. The meeting began. The host announced the agenda. Election of the new chairman. Report from the Technology Compliance Committee. Transition plan for the Star River project. Every topic was connected to me. But this time, I wasn't standing on stage while other people decided my future. I was sitting among the shareholders. I had a vote. Halfway through the meeting, Director Zhao stepped onto the stage. He had once been Song Wantong's strongest supporter. Now he said, "The company made serious mistakes in corporate governance. We failed to give our core technical contributors the respect they deserved. This is a lesson we must never forget." Applause filled the room. I didn't clap. When the truth arrives too late, it isn't something worth applauding. After the meeting ended, Song Wantong finally stopped me. "Yanchen." I stopped walking. She looked exhausted, and there was a cautious look in her eyes. "Did you receive the ring I sent?" "I did." "You sent it back?" "Yes." Her eyes slowly turned red. "You couldn't even leave me one sentence?" I looked at her. 3 months earlier, she had stood beneath the spotlight and handed me divorce papers in front of everyone. Now she stood quietly at the edge of the crowd, finally understanding that the spotlight can burn the person standing beneath it. I said calmly, "Song Wantong, we're already divorced." Her lips trembled. "I know." "Then don't let the past disturb my life anymore." She lowered her head. "I just wanted to tell you. I truly know I was wrong." I nodded. "Then remember that." She looked back up at me. I continued, "Not because I'm coming back. So you never treat another person this way again." Tears slipped down her face. "Do you really not love me anymore?" I didn't answer immediately. At the end of the hallway, people walked back and forth. Someone recognized me and nodded with respect. No one called me Chairman Song's husband anymore. No one whispered that I was living off Song Wantong. For the first time in a long time, I was simply myself. I looked at her and answered quietly, "I did love you." A small spark of hope appeared in her eyes. Then I finished my sentence. "But I don't carry the past into my new life." The light disappeared from her eyes as tears streamed down her face. I turned and walked away. This time she didn't follow. When I stepped outside the hotel, the sun was shining brightly. Old Chun was waiting beside the car. He was now the driver for my new company. When he saw me, he smiled. "Mr. Gu, heading back to the office?" I glanced back at the hotel one last time. 3 months earlier, I had walked out of those doors, taken off my wedding ring, and begun fighting for myself. 3 months earlier, I had walked out of that hotel filled with anger and determination. Now I walked away with neither anger nor regret. I opened the car door. "Let's head back to the office." The car pulled onto the main road. A news alert popped up on my phone. Yanchen Tech and Xinghe Capital reach long-term strategic partnership. Core risk control model expands into multi-industry applications. Below it, someone had reposted an old article that had once dominated the headlines. The full story behind Wantang Technology's annual meeting divorce agreement. I locked my phone and set it aside. Outside the window, the city slowly faded behind us, while the glass exterior of my new office building reflected the afternoon sunlight ahead. I suddenly remembered the question Lu Jingyan had asked me at the annual party. Can a man accept losing? Now, I finally knew the answer. Accepting a loss doesn't mean swallowing humiliation. It means seeing the truth clearly, then walking away without looking back. Winning isn't about taking someone back. It's about reclaiming piece by piece the dignity, the boundaries, and the control you once handed over to someone else. I don't need to explain myself anymore, and I don't need to look back, because the greatest revenge isn't making the person who betrayed you cry with regret. It's knowing that, from this moment on, their regret no longer has any power over your life.